Welcome, Bo-Katan of Clan Kryze. This is the way.
This is the way.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy. We're barely at the start of Mandalorian Season 3, and Din Djarin has already completed his quest for redemption in the mines of Mandalore. This season is not going the way I thought it would at all, and I love it. But it does make us wonder what in the heck is going to happen in the rest of Season 3. So, the biggest reveal of these first 3 chapters is the Mythosaur. The return of this mythical creature could change everything for the Mandalorian going forward. So, we have to explain the significance of the Mythosaur, why Bo-Katan is keeping its existence a secret, and what will she do now that she's joined the Mando cult, and what it means for Din and Grogu, because don't forget about the importance of the Darksaber. Whoever wields it can rule all the Mandalorians. Combine that with the Mythosaur and things are about to get really complicated for Din and Grogu. And that's because we think that Season 3 is setting up a major conflict that will become a Mandalorian Civil War.
These mines date back to the age of the first Mandalor. According to ancient folklore, the mines were once a Mythosaur lair. Mandalor the Great is said to have tamed the mythical beast.
Okay, at the end of Chapter 19, Din is welcomed back into the covert after he took a nice swim in the mines of Mandalore. But the even bigger surprise is that Bo-Katan is also accepted into this covert. The Armorer welcomes her into the Children of the Watch because Bo bathed in the living waters and since then hasn't removed her helmet.
So she joined the cult now too?
Well, that's where the story gets really interesting. I simply cannot believe that Bo genuinely wants to join this cult. What might be happening here is that she merely is biding her time to formulate a proper plan. Don't forget that a lot of things happened to her in chapters 18 and 19. Bo-Katan was skulking around on her brooding chair, and then Grogu shows up and they're off to save Din on Mandalore. After saving Din twice, she sees the Mythosaur, a legendary creature that was believed to be extinct.
Oh my god!
Before she can even start comprehending what it all means, the trio is attacked by the Empire and her castle gets destroyed, including her brooding chair.
They broke my chair!
And then, all of a sudden, she's joined a cult. So she really doesn't have any time to wrap her head around the whole Mythosaur thing. But the legendary creature is at the center of what's coming next.
So what even is a Mythosaur?
Okay, so Mythosaurs are really big creatures that basically inspired the Mandalorian culture, and I have to say, the beast is way bigger than I ever imagined. I was sure that the Mythosaur would be slightly bigger than a Rancor, sort of like a dragon in House of the Dragon, but the Mythosaur looks like he's closer to Godzilla size. Long ago, a Mandalorian tamed the beast and rode it.
Your ancestors rode the great Mythosaur.
That hero became Mandalor the Great, a title given to the leader of the Mandalorian people. The skull of the Mythosaur became the symbol of all Mandalorians. Now, since those ancient times, the Mythosaurs were believed to go extinct. That was up until Din went for a nice swim of redemption in the living waters. Down in the mines, Bo-Katan witnessed this giant creature. According to the Armorer, the ancient stories foretold the return of the Mythosaur will bring a new age.
The songs of eons past foretold of the Mythosaur rising up to herald a new age of Mandalore.
Now, I assume these songs were known to all Mandalorians, meaning Bo-Katan is aware of the legends of the Mythosaur. And now that she discovered the mythical beast, she might believe that it's a sign that she is the one who will herald a new age for Mandalore. Now, Bo-Katan was never that superstitious. In fact, she's cynical about the legends, which is why she's so critical of Din's cult. But witnessing a fabled beast in a holy place must have revitalized her faith. And on top of that, she sees herself as the true heiress of Mandalore. House Kryze ruled the Mandalorians before and during the Clone Wars. After the death of her sister, Satine, Bo saw herself as the natural successor. So she believes that it's her destiny to become the Mandalore and unite her people. And now that she's been accepted into the Children of the Watch, Bo can exploit their creed and get them to follow her.
Oh, so Bo-Katan is evil?
No, I don't think she's evil, but she did start off as a baddie in the Clone Wars, and she used to even be a top member of Death Watch. Eventually, Bo became an anti-hero and even a hero, but she's got a dark past. The Purge of Mandalore must have left serious psychological scars on her. An event like that could force a person to turn to very drastic measures.
I killed them, and not just the men, but the women, and the children too. They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals.
Psycho.
At the start of Season 3, Bo-Katan is pretty much done with everyone after constant failures to unite her people. There are those who even blame her for the Great Purge of Mandalore, and she herself might feel responsible for it. Bo-Katan wielded the Darksaber during the Imperial era, but she never won it in combat.
She once laid claim to rule Mandalore based purely on blood and the sword you now possess. But it was gifted to her and not won by creed.
In case you forgot, one must win the Darksaber in a duel to earn the blade. Now, during the Clone Wars era, the blade belonged to Pre Vizsla, the leader of Death Watch. Darth Maul killed him in a duel and became the ruler of Mandalore. Maul later left the blade on his home planet of Dathomir. During the Imperial days, Sabine Wren found the saber on Dathomir and she eventually gave it to Bo-Katan. Now, back then, the Mandalorians accepted her as their ruler, but now we know that obtaining the Darksaber without a duel isn't quite regulation.
And this asphalt, that's not regulation.
No, it's not regulation.
And then she lost the Darksaber to Moff Gideon, the same Moff who nuked Mandalore. So this is why some Mandalorians believe that Bo brought a curse on Mandalore. Ever since then, Bo has tried to get the blade back, but then Din was the one who won it in a duel.
When I returned without the Darksaber, my forces melted away.
So the return of the Mythosaur is Bo's final chance to become the ruler of Mandalore and unite her people. Now, the Children of the Watch are a very superstitious bunch. Bo can use their superstition to convince them that the Mythosaur's return is a sign that they must now follow her. With the Children of the Watch, she could unite the other clans and bring them all under her rule. Although, judging by how divided the Mandalorians are, there might be some battles between the clans before they finally unite under one leader. Now, seeing a mythical beast is one thing, but to become a true ruler, Bo must tame and ride the Mythosaur, just like Mandalore the Great did a long time ago. And the only way Bo-Katan can achieve this is with the Darksaber.
Is that how Mandalor the Great did it?
Well, no, not exactly. Mandalore the Great tamed the Mythosaur long before the blade was even created. The Darksaber was made later by Tar Vizsla, the first and possibly only Mandalorian Jedi. So that means that Mandalore the Great tamed the Mythosaur without the Darksaber. But symbolism has great importance in this culture. Whoever wields the Darksaber rules all of Mandalore.
Wave that thing around, and they'll do whatever you say.
The Mandalorians take the Darksaber very seriously. I mean, these guys followed Maul just because he won a duel and he wasn't even a Mandalorian. So Bo needs the Darksaber to solidify her rule.
Without that blade, she's a pretender.
It's only symbolic that the holder of the legendary blade will tame the mythical beast.
The Darksaber doesn't have power. The story does.
But wait, what does that mean for Din Djarin?
Well, considering that Din is the current holder of the Darksaber, he's the only one who could undermine Bo-Katan's claims. But Din is basically Space Jon Snow. He doesn't want to rule.
I don't want it.
I yield. It's yours.
So let's hope that this doesn't mean that Bo-Katan is the Daenerys of this story. Now, in theory, Bo-Katan should support Din. He won the blade in combat fair and square. He's also a decent guy, and more importantly, he's a blank slate. So much of the Mandalorian's history has been filled with wars and destruction. Even Bo-Katan herself is burdened by this history. But Din isn't tainted by that bloody history. He can be a fresh start, partly because he's kind of oblivious to it all.
And you are a child of the Watch.
The Watch?
What do you know of the Jedi?
Nothing. Does this look Jedi to you?
But he himself is a man who's currently in a state of change and finding a new purpose. So he might not want to rule, but that's the very reason why he will be such a good leader. But Star Wars has always been about individuals and groups who are obsessed with gaining power or maintaining their power. And in the end, this always destroys them. All of this means that Din and Bo-Katan will have to duel for the Darksaber and the future of the Mandalorian people.
This is the way.
This is the way.
But there's a third dangerous player involved in this conflict, and that is the Children of the Watch. It seems like the show keeps shifting how we should perceive them, but I always got the sense that there's something very sinister about them.
Children of the Watch are a cult of religious zealots that broke away from Mandalorian society.
So, here's a twist that I hope we see in Season 3. The Armorer and the leaders of the Covert knew all along that Mandalore isn't cursed and that they could return to the planet at any time. However, they decided to lie about it and keep the other Mandalorians away from Mandalore.
Why would they do that?
Well, listen to what Bo-Katan tells Din here.
Your cult gave up on Mandalore long before the Purge.
This could indicate that they believe that their people are stronger as nomadic tribes that are scattered across the galaxy.
That doesn't sound much better to me.
Well, it might be better than the alternative. The Mandalorian's history is ravaged by endless civil wars. This bloody history turned the planet into a wasteland long before the Empire nuked it. During the Clone Wars, Mandalore was ruled by the pacifists, who were led by Katans Kryze, that's Bo-Katan's sister. They were opposed by the Mandalorian clans who wanted to maintain the warrior creed. Those clans united as the terrorist group known as Death Watch. The Children of the Watch are likely this continuation of Death Watch. There are many parallels between their ideologies and the beliefs in the old creed.
Descendants of the true warrior faith all Mandalorians once knew. Now my people are living in exile because we will not abandon our heritage.
And back in Season 1, we got obvious clues to that because the Mandalorians who rescued Din as a child were members of Death Watch. You can see their insignia right here. And more importantly, the Children of the Watch survived the Purge because they were secluded on Concordia.
I grew up there, on that moon, Concordia.
That's also where Death Watch began. Since this show never confirmed this, my theory is that the Children of the Watch encompass Death Watch and the other clans who believed in this warrior creed. Also, I should mention that at the end of the Clone Wars, Death Watch was taken over by Darth Maul. Anyways, the events of the Clone Wars must have convinced the Children of the Watch that settling on one planet will make their people weak and soft. If they abandon the old ways, then the cycle of war and destruction would start all over again. In exile, the Mandalorians maintained their warrior identities. It's also a really efficient method for a cult to maintain control over its members.
I've been involved in a number of cults, both as a leader and a follower. You have more fun as a follower, but you make more money as a leader.
Once the return of the Mythosaur will be discovered by others, the Children of the Watch will find a way to control the narrative and weaponize the mythical beast to prove that their way is the only way. Remember what the old song says.
Songs of eons past foretold of the Mythosaur rising up to herald a new age of Mandalor.
This new age could be a peaceful one for the Mandalorians, or it might lead to a religious crusade. The discovery of the truth about the covert and their motivation could finally force Din Djarin to confront them, and also to confront his own beliefs and views of the Mandalorian creed. In the first 2 seasons, Din was completely devoted to the creed, but his connection to Grogu led him to remove his helmet. This choice was a fundamental change for Din, but then he sort of went back to the old ways.
Safe in the braid of the old ways.
That being said, he did change, like deciding to stop being a bounty hunter.
These people are counting on me. Okay then, we'll both die in the name of honor. You sure you want to stay? This is the way.
He needs to keep changing, and the only way he can do that is to confront his cult and their dogmatic creed. So at first, Din and Bo-Katan will clash for the Darksaber, but eventually they will discover the truth about the Children of the Watch and end up teaming up against them. All of this could mean that by the end of Season 3, there's going to be another Mandalorian Civil War, and this time, Din will lead the charge against the cult that he was once so devoted to. In the end, Din might be crowned as the new Mandalor the Great and rule all the clans, or perhaps Din ushers in a new age by freeing his people from these old ways. And instead of following the dogmatic creed, he will step aside and let Bo-Katan fulfill her destiny and become the leader of the Mandalorians and start a new and better age for their people.
An age of freedom.
But whatever happens, I'm pretty sure that by the end of the season, Din and Grogu are going to ride that Mythosaur into the sunset. But what do you guys think is going to happen in Season 3? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.